Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's Fireside. I'm Eric Mack. I'm by myself. This isn't actually a sequencer episode. Susie's out of town, but wanted to take this opportunity to hop online and have a special fireside chat with our community and with head of Linea, Declan Fox. Welcome. Thank you for joining us, and thanks for taking the time from a very busy schedule in a somewhat noisy WeWork to talk a little bit about what's going on. So how are things? And maybe first, tell us a little bit about what's new, what's different in your current role with Linea versus what you were doing, say, at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, well, firstly, thanks, Eric. Good to see everyone. Sorry you don't get to see Susie this week. Hopefully I can be a good second best. So yeah, big sort of change recently for me. Like my previous role was head of product at Linea, so focusing mostly on the product strategy, product roadmap. If you've ever seen the product roadmap and all the sort of decisions around, making sure that Linea is building the right things at the right direction, like for the right people. That was kind of my main role and main responsibility. I was a little bit more sort of behind the scenes, even though I like to kind of jump on Twitter every now and then and sort of talk to the community and kind of, get feedback from the community on things they'd like to see in the product. And now this new role, taking on the role of head of Linea, it's much bigger. It's not just about the product, the protocol itself, which is still, in great hands and, very much lots of amazing people working on that and continue to work on that. But it's not just about the product. It's about, now it's about the people, the processes, the outcomes, making sure Linea is a success, not just on the technology, but actually the ecosystem as well. And so I'm sort of here to help, lead or shepherd Linea, really to sort of be a sort of long-term successful ecosystem and platform, and also make sure that we serve the community and kind of stay true to our sort of Ethereum values as well. So that's something that's really important to me. And one of the reasons I got into crypto, I want to make sure that Linea kind of continues that mission. I think importantly as well, just kind of want to be present. I want to listen. I want to be visible and accountable as well, and kind of, let people know that we're sort of building Linea with them as well. So.
Right, and you had posted a tweet thread a couple of weeks ago. I think it was kind of your first, maybe your coming out tweet thread as head of Linea. Initially you wanted to write a much longer tweet thread, and I suggested this is actually like a good thing to talk about on a live stream. Like, let's let the community hear this from your mouth, from your face, with your wonderful accent. And I'm a jealous American. What can I say? And let's kind of talk through some of that. And I'm already seeing some of the questions in chat that I think we knew we were going to have first, and that we wanted to get into in person. And so let's just get those out of the way. And those are, what is the status of the roadmap for Linea? Things like, when are we going to see the tokenomics, the checker, TGE, all of that?
Yeah. So question on everybody's mind, I'm sure, as we all know. So yeah, I want to be upfront. We don't have any public update to share right now. But the important thing is I want to be here and sort of, show that we're listening, we're learning. I want to reinform that it's a top priority internally, the biggest priority. I think in the past, we'd shared timelines before things were fully locked, and that was a mistake. We sort of learn from that. We take the L, we listen, we improve. The world doesn't need more vague announcements. So I think what we can do is we can share how we want to go forward. And I've sort of been posting about this on Twitter a little bit throughout the week, but my mantra is we can't have half answers or hand waving. We want to speak on these things when we're actually ready to share the full picture, and it's 100% certain. So when we have it, we'll share it with everyone. You'll know about it, and it will be super clear and concrete. So behind the scenes, it's we're working heads down to finalize everything, from the eligibility to the tokenomics to the actual launch plan itself. We've been listening as well. There's been lots of community posts. I've jumped on calls with tens, if not nearly hundreds of ecosystem partners and community members, anyone who's reached out to kind of want to share their feedback, as well as sort of internal folks as well, to kind of understand the situation, just get up to speed. and we're making sort of changes based on that. So yeah, our North Star hasn't changed. The TG is still coming. It still needs to reflect the quality of the technology that we've built thus far, and also the sort of vision that we have for Linear and also Ethereum. So it's not just a box to check. And we kind of see from other, something that I've always felt is that we look at other L2s, and I don't think we fit in the same bracket because we're not just another L2. Like, we really are here to kind of help fulfill the vision of Ethereum. And so we want to do that the right way. And so, yeah, again, like, we don't have a date today, but we're working to get the full update with specifics in the sort of very near term future. And when we do everything will be very clear, so you have exactly the tokenomics, all the real information, not just sort of vibes or feelings, but concrete stuff.
We're going to dig a little bit more into kind of what that means to kind of fulfill the vision of Ethereum and dive into that. But first, just to kind of linger here for a little bit, because I know this is people in the community have been wanting to hear more about this, and the Linea community, we know it's not the largest community in crypto, at least not yet, but I think it is one of the stronger ones that folks definitely on this live stream and in the community have been some of the most patient folks in crypto, including me and including us. And I mean, folks have been patient even when it's been really frustrating. And for the small number of us who are actually on the core team of Linea, like you, or that work with the core team like me, we also feel that frustration of how long things take, and how when things change or we have new insights and we want to adjust or iterate on things, and then that delays things. It's even more frustrating. But you and I just want to acknowledge we have a different and more privileged view on the inside that can kind of ease those frustrations. Probably makes it easier for us than for the folks watching right now. And like you said, I know it's important to you to try to bring the community in and to be as transparent as we can through things like Discord, the community forum, and this Fireside right now. I mean, I know personally that you take in a lot of the feedback and actually spend a lot of time on those channels, and that not being able to respond to everything is probably one of your unique frustrations, just as being on the other side and not feeling heard is a big source of frustration for people. So, like, tell us a little bit more about how you do go through taking in that feedback from the community and how it's even impacted, where Linea has been and where it's going now.
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, it's pretty personal for me. Like, a lot of people know internally and maybe externally, like, I don't sleep much. I'm always sort of there, reading the forums and, jumping in the Discord when I can, getting a lot of DMs, especially recently. So, again, I've probably seen your post for the community members. I can't always have the chance to reply because I have to make sure that, I can keep things moving on this journey. But yeah, that feedback, it's not just noise to me. It's like, it's signal. There's a few sort of people which is definitely noise, but for the most part there's a lot of good signal out there, and it definitely guides what we prioritize, so it really helps to challenge our assumptions. Sometimes it stings a bit, I'll be honest, but that's okay. It means people care, and I prefer that to kind of get the hard and comfortable truth sometimes. I like some examples for where feedback has sort of directly changed our direction. I think there was a period last year when people were saying no more quests, people were burnt out, didn't want to be valued for keep doing those sort of campaigns, and we listened. There wasn't a season 3. Things have kind of moved on. I remember in the surge people were asking to lower the floor for the early adopter multiplier, which we agreed to do and lowered that. And so again, that was all people's influence raising these concerns on different forums. Even the tokenomics clarity, right? That was something that was raised, and so I hear you. That's my main priority in getting that fixed. That's again listening to the community and making sure that we can sort of learn and respond to that essentially. Another big one from talking to partners over the last couple of weeks since I've kind of stepped into the new role is issues around how we've maybe co-marketed certain projects. Some apps weren't adding the same kind of value. There was some issues with security and sort of credibility, and it doesn't really live up to the standard of the Linear ecosystem, and lots of people raise that to me personally in calls. So that's something we want to improve. We just launched this MetaMask portfolio Linear Explore page. There'll be a new user hub coming out soon for Linear, which allows you to kind of explore dApps, and some of the feedback that I've received in DMs and documents from for the criteria of like the apps, we'll definitely be including that in the sort of design as well. So yeah, I think these are all kind of different ways that we've been sort of listening. Oh, again, for the airdrop criteria, I've been engaged in the discourse forums for a while now, sort of back and forth with people, and there's been some great like creative ideas in there. So I'm definitely like misincentivized sort of users, so it's sometimes hard to filter the noise and the signal in that forum, but for the most part, trying to listen and kind of adapt my learning. So yeah, it's not just about the feedback, it's all kind of a big partnership.
Nice. All right, let's pivot and let's kind of talk about some of the other conversations that have been happening inside Linea and Consensus, and actually inside the whole Ethereum ecosystem more broadly the past several months. As the head now of an L2 that's very closely aligned to Ethereum, both in terms of the code and the people on the team, what are your thoughts on the broader state of Ethereum and L2s?
Yeah, Ethereum is still the foundation that so much of the ecosystem is built on. Yes, the price is down and people are sort of, narrative can follow price. But look, it's where the deepest value lives, like open source, decentralization, credible neutrality, all of these things like we care about. But I think the role of L2s has changed. Like we're not really just solving scalability anymore, which is sort of the raison d'etre for rollups for a long time. But like we're actually shaping the experience. Like what does it feels like to actually use crypto? So there's a lot of noise right now around L2s and the tension between L2s and L1s. Too many chains, too many incentives, lots of users like feeling lost. But there's also opportunity, where we're seeing serious institutional interest in Ethereum again. The demand for better user experience, for more legitimacy, it's rising. And I think that's where Linea stands out, because we're not just another L2. Like we're built from the ground up to be aligned with Ethereum, technically, because we are the only Ethereum equivalent like tech stack. That was a decision we took very early on the product side when I was working in the product team. But philosophically as well, like we use the zkVM tech. Our team is full of long-term Ethereum contributors. We're backed by Consensus. So you have the MetaMask, Infura, Bezu, Teku connection and credibility. So yes, like as a sort of, I guess, leader, steward of an L2, there's this pressure, but there's also a massive opportunity to be the L2 that kind of builds for Ethereum's future, and that's what we want to do, not just for today's trends.
And so, like, tell me a little bit more about like what's kind of around the corner in terms of on the technical product side. I think we've got some updates that are coming pretty soon, right?
Yeah, so the team's continuing to cook on the technical side. Some of the things that are coming out there, we have our sort of proof of completeness release coming out, beta v2 it'd be called. This is huge for security. We've been working really hard on getting to L2 beat stage 1 and stage 2. So the current plan is to get to stage 1 in the next quarter, which is effectively a way to kind of force your transaction from the L1 so you can get your funds off of Linea, even if the team was to sort of walk away from the platform. So it kind of passes what we call the walk away test. That's super important for users, institutions, anyone who wants to like come onto the platform. And then stage 2 includes this thing called a multi-prover. So we actually have different provers validating each block, which gives us another layer of sort of security and protection. And it actually prevents even like, an insider, we call it the insider attack test. Like even if the insiders, people running the operations of the chain tried to attack the chain and steal funds, they couldn't. So at that point, you're like almost the same trust assumptions as you have using Ethereum itself, which is, again, super important things on the roadmap. We also have the Pectra upgrade, firstly on the L1, which is going to increase the blob targets. It's going to allow us to kind of, scale up our applications to have more, transactions whilst maintaining a low cost. And, I was having conversations even this week with some very big, like sort of enterprise, like Web2 enterprises who want to sort of come on chain. And they were telling me like, the issue is actually that the blob throughput is not high enough for them. That's actually a bottleneck. So in their sort of architectural analysis, we need to scale the Ethereum L1 blobs in order to kind of meet this demand and put these users on L2 and keep them in Ethereum. And so Pectra allows us to kind of continue that journey, but then also we'll update Linea to be on the Pectra EVM. And that means we get all the account abstraction sort of features where, wallets can essentially be upgraded to be smart wallets. So now you can sort of log in using your Gmail or your Facebook or pass keys. You don't need to have a sort of EOA and 12-word secret recovery phrase. It really sort of updates the user experience, and that's all coming like very soon on the technical side. And yeah, I'm feeling very confident in the roadmap and the product and the sort of direction that Ethereum's taken on that side. It's just taking a bit longer than maybe everyone had hoped for, but the sort of the foundations and the sort of the tech is there. It's just, you know, a few more upgrades, and yeah, I think people are really going to see a sort of step change in the user experience of like Ethereum and Linear and all the sort of EVM L2s.
Yeah, I know, like with Pectra, like you said, it rolls out to mainnet first. We're hoping in about 2 weeks. And but then to get to a lot of the L2s, including Linea, it may not happen until a little bit later in the year. But there will actually be some updates coming much sooner that will enable some of the features in Pectra, what you'll be able to use on Linea basically first.
Yeah, that's actually quite a unique innovation that we've pushed on the Linear chain, which I'm pretty proud of. So it's we're basically adding a feature called Send Bundle, which is on Ethereum, but it's used mostly for like Flashbots and MEV. We can add this Send Bundle feature onto Linear, and it allows wallets to basically manage sort of similar, you know, we call it the 5729 calls, but essentially the wallet can then send like batched execution calls. So you can, you know, like, okay, as a user, when you go to use a decentralized exchange, a DEX, and you want to swap, today you have to approve and then swap. It's like 2 transactions. So we can bundle that into one, and we can have that on Linear before Pectra even goes live, which is super cool. So yeah, we get all that goodness of Pectra even before, and then Pectra just allows us to kind of get, you know, sort of up to date with the standards and have even more features as well.
The kind of person that's watching Pectra closely, I imagine, may also be watching the discussion about this proposal that Vitalik put forward. I think it was earlier this week. The idea of replacing the EVM with the is it Risk V or Risk 5? I've never heard
Risk 5. Yeah.
Okay, Risk 5. What would that mean for Linea?
Yeah. Whenever Vitalik makes an article, it's always sort of the mainstream news, and yeah, I think it's great that, you know, Vitalik is continuing to sort of explore ways to make the EVM better and more ZK friendly as well. So like, obviously we are a ZK rollup. We think zero knowledge is the sort of the only future viable path for scaling blockchains. So it's great that he's thinking about that, and that sort of like research is what keeps Ethereum ahead. And I think the changes at the Ethereum Foundation now, you know, with the sort of new co-executive directors, allows sort of Vitalik to keep doing this R&D, and his voice does have a big influence. So, you know, I really kind of respect that. You know, that said, like we've been thinking about this at Linear for a very long time. We're pretty cautious. I think the reality is that, like, you know, most proving costs come from state access and the cryptographic operations. So not just the general computation. So Risk 5, it might help with some workloads, but we're not convinced it solves the big bottlenecks, to be clear. And I think the complexity of splitting into this sort of kernel and user modes, it adds risk and it slows things down. So our path is a bit more grounded. You know, we have this sort of direct arithmetization when it comes to the ZK EVM. So we're, well, you know, trains ourselves, not using a sort of extraction of a ZK EVM, optimizing the pre-compiles, and the engineering provers as well that actually are delivered and available in production today. So it's sort of less flashy, but it's definitely more real, and it definitely gets us to performance gains without fragmenting the Ethereum experience. You know, so we spent 10 years building the EVM. There's a lot of background there and history, and I think throwing it away, you know, is a very sort of big decision. So yeah, I think we're not particularly. I don't expect us to sort of move to Risk 5 anytime in the near future. There's probably better sort of custom ISAs that we can look at as well, like, you know, WASM or even just a completely new one. But anyway, we're watching, we're sort of staying open, and, you know, in those discussions to make sure if there is a sort of path there that then it actually brings real value to Ethereum, because that's what we care about.
The way I had it explained to me is, you know, basically the way that Linea has been built is almost the hardest way that possible that you could do it, but that like by doing it basically the difficult way, you get like all of these gains that the risk. I don't want to call Risk 5 like a kind of a way to shortcut things, but it is like a more expeditious way that maybe you like you said, it's risky, right? So
Yeah.
anyway, does that sound right? That's how it was explained to me as a more lay person.
Yeah, like the analogy that I've used before is, it's almost like the difference between like a high precision scalpel and a sort of Swiss Army knife. And so it depends on the sort of situation you're in. Like if you want to do open heart surgery, like you don't want to be hacking away with a Swiss Army knife, you want a high precision scalpel. And to us, that's proving the EVM. Like open heart surgery is proving the EVM. You want this high precision scalpel that's very manually created for one specific like task. However, like for every other task nearly, like if you're like stuck in the woods or you're at home and you're like, doing like a renovation or a move, Swiss Army knife's great. It's flexible, it's generic. You're going to get a lot of like use out of it, but it's never going to be good at that one specific task that you want. And again, so we've taken the direct approach, the high precision scalpel approach. ZKVM takes a different approach, which is more flexible. Both have their use cases, but for proving EVM, the one we've taken will always be more performant. Yeah.
Got it. Let's see. Moving to some other things happening on Linea, particularly in my world. I just got this. This is there it is. There is the MetaMask card, and being able to spend my AUSDC. So that USDC that's actually earning yield right until the moment that you spend it. That just got turned on in the US. Went out and successfully used it this morning. So I'm pretty psyched about that. What else is happening in terms of this, this whole new world of payments on Linea?
Yeah, so mine was arriving today and I missed it because I was out. So I'm sort of gutted I haven't opened it yet. But yeah, sort of very excited about payments, about identity as well. I think decentralized identity is sort of the next big frontier for blockchains. And I have quite like a sort of pragmatic view of like what blockchains are useful for. Like anything that requires a sort of strict global consensus, like a global coordination mechanism and peer-to-peer operations is good for the blockchain. And like we know that's like things that require objective inputs and outputs. So that's like decentralized money and value, which is why payments is having so much product market fit, DeFi transfers. But then there's also decentralized identity, and that's where I think like attestations, sort of ENS, proof of humanity, like all of these things where you can build up a sort of reputation on chain makes a lot of sense for crypto and blockchains. And I think we're already seeing a lot of Web2 platforms of users like start to understand this and lean into the blockchain rails as a back end just to provide a better user experience. Like you as a user can actually then own your data, which is kind of one of the big value props for crypto. But also you get a better experience because let's say like, we attest all the time, right? Like it's just someone saying something about something in a context. And so if I can attest that, Eric is a great, podcast host and writer, right? That then goes on the chain and it can be used to like increase your reputation where almost like a sort of decentralized LinkedIn can be built, and then that allows you to access certain jobs or like experiences that you might otherwise not. So I think that is one of the huge things I'm really excited about. I think other things, so again, payments is really taking off and the MetaMask card is a great example of that. With AUSDC, you're essentially earning yield, like right up to the moment that you actually tap your card to like buy a coffee or whatever it is. Like that's pretty incredible. And the sort of the rate that you get on this is far better than anything you'd get in Web 2. So like as a sort of product, mindset, I'm always thinking like you're trying to, one of the sort of mantras we have in product is that something has to be 10x better than alternative solutions to get people to move, because there's always inertia, right? Like if you're stuck on something, like there's an inertia to kind of change your product or change what you're doing in your day-to-day life. And I think with cards using DeFi and crypto rails, we actually have the potential to create something that's 10x better. It's already better. It's just not 10x better. So we're getting there. And I think soon people, we'll just see a sort of, equivalent of like either HSBC card or an Amex American Express card. I can get 1%, cash back, or I can go ahead and use this MetaMask card where I can get, up to 8% cash back. And I can also earn yield on my, it's like a sort of credit account at the same time. And I can plug into DeFi and I get rewards and, I have this reputation. So I think there's this sort of world emerging around payments and identity, which is really quite special and definitely leverages the unique properties of blockchain. Yeah.
Totally. That's actually one of the reasons I got into to Web3. Could talk about it for quite a while, and we'll dive into it in coming weeks and future live streams, probably when Susie's back as well. I know you've got to hop off at the top of the hour, I think. So is there anything else that you wanted to mention or that we've left out?
I guess, for the other people, the communities are watching, like, we're really excited about the future of linear and like the big part that the community has to play in that. Like, I'm sort of building that with you as well. And I think one thing I want to say is like my role as sort of stepping as leader is more just about, we all recognize the potential that linear has on this big sort of experiment and journey of Ethereum. And I think I'm just kind of coming in to sort of, course correct and nudge it back in the right direction, really. And I think there's so many amazing builders and communities out there that I've spoken to in the last weeks. A lot of you will know who you are. And I think for what the practical thing that the community can help us with is keep giving us feedback, keep sort of experimenting with the ecosystem, keep sort of like, recommending new applications, ways that we can enhance the products and sort of, get more people on chain. That's really the thing that can help us most right now. So yeah, keep providing feedback, hit me up on Twitter, try to be nice, but yeah.
Always try to be nice. Sooner or later, we're going to live in a world where there's going to be attestations attached to all the things you say on social media, and it's going to encourage you to be nicer. It's going to happen one day.
Yeah, or the AI overlords will come and,
Oh, right. Yeah, there's also that. Much more to come. Exciting things being built all around that. Hey, Declan Fox, thank you so much for taking the time. Congratulations on your new role, and thanks for being the leader that you are.
Thanks, Eric.
All right, and thanks everyone for watching. Then thank you to producer Joe. Take care, y'all.